Hi, everybody. I am Kylie. I was the host of last week's video, and I am an AmeriCorps member with Rural Action. This is week 2 of the Passport to Fishing workshop. This is knots and rigging, and in this video, we're going to talk about how to tie a knot on your fishing pole to tie your hook on, how to put your sinkers on, and how to put your bobbers on. And today, my coworker Ricky is going to teach all of you guys this fun information. So unless you guys have any questions before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to him. All right, Ricky, you're good to go.
Okay, hey guys, how's it going? So I'm Ricky, like Kylie was saying. I'm also an AmeriCorps member that works at Monday Creek. And so last week we learned about how to handle fish, and this week we're going to learn more about how to catch fish. So the first thing that we're going to need to catch a fish is a hook, right? Because we need something to catch the fish with. So, sorry. This is going to be my demonstration hook, but this hook is probably too big to use, right? Because if we had this fish, he couldn't get his mouth on it because this hook is so big, right? So we're going to want to use like a littler hook because you can catch big fish with a little hook, but it's hard to catch little fish with a big hook. So this one would catch them nice and we could have a fish, right? So if you look real close on this hook, you see right there, there's a little pointy part sticking backwards on it. That's called a barb. And those make it a lot harder to get the hook out of the fish. So it makes it a lot more stressful for the fish when you catch one. And also if you like snag yourself with it, it's a lot harder to get it out, and that's not any fun. So when you get hooks, you either want to get ones without barbs, or you can make your hooks with barbs, barbless hooks, by crushing them. So let me know if you can't see this very well, but what you would do is get a nice needle nose pliers like this, and you're going to take it and put it flat on there along the barb, and then squeeze it down. And now you can see that barb's all crushed. So when you catch a fish, it's not going to snag on it when you're trying to get the hook out, and it'll be a lot easier to let him go. Does that make sense for everyone? Or is there any questions about that?
You guys can ask questions in the chat, and you can also unmute your microphone and ask questions whenever you have one.
So yeah, so after you get a hook and crush the barb, so this is, let's say this is our hook, crushed all the barbs, or there's no barbs on them, we're going to need a way to attach this hook to our fishing line, right? Because we can't catch a fish with just a bare hook. We need to attach it to our fishing pole. So we're going to tie a knot on it called the polymer knot. And it's a pretty simple knot, but it works really well. And so first, a little terminology. This right here on the end, the little loop on the end of the hook, it's called the eye of the hook. And that's where we're going to tie our knot. Okay. I'm going to turn this down so you can see a little bit better. And so this is my fishing line. It's not real fishing line, but it's just rope for the demonstration. And the first step to tying the polymer knot is you're going to take the end that's not attached to your fishing pole, the tag end, and you're going to pass it through the eye of the hook, just like that, all right? So it's going straight through. And then the second step, you're going to take the tag end, and you're going to turn it around and pass it back through again, all right? So on one side of the hook, you have a little loop, And on the other side of the hook, you have two ends of the line. All right, so the next step is kind of just like the first step to tying your shoes. You're going to do a simple overhand knot. So you're going to take the loop side and the other side, and you're going to just cross them over, kind of like that, and then tuck the loop through. All right? And so now at this point, you don't want to pull it super tight because we've got another step. But, so here I got to adjust a little bit since my hook's so big. So you're going to take this loop end and you're going to pass it through all the parts of the hook. And it's a lot easier to do when you have a normal size hook, but big hooks work better for demonstrations. So now, the final step, we got to tighten it up because this is all loose. We don't want it loose like that. So you're going to grab the two ends here and you're going to pull on them. And it should slide pretty easily if you have actual fishing line, but this rope doesn't like to slide very well. So I have to finagle it a little bit. And you're going to end up with a little knot like that. And now, if we're actually going fishing, the one last step we want to do when we tie a knot is the tag end that's left over, that's not attached to our pole. We want to trim it pretty close to the knot, about 1/8 an inch, so that it's not dangling around and getting in the way of the fish that we're trying to catch. And we want to be super conscious of when we trim any line that it doesn't make it to the ground. We want to make sure that we put it in our pocket or straight in a trash can or in like our tackle box, because wildlife can get tangled up in it and it can really hurt them. I've got a couple pictures I can show of that too if you want to see. See, like this little bird, he got a bunch of fishing line that people had left behind. Or the same with this guy, he was trying to eat it and it got all caught up in him. And so if we're out fishing, we want to be really respectful of the wildlife and make sure that we don't leave any of our fishing line behind. So if you ever cut any of your line, make sure it goes straight in the trash. Or if you see some line someone else accidentally left behind, it's a good idea to pick it up. So did I lose anybody with tying the knot? Would you guys like to go over it again? Or did that make sense? You can give me like a thumbs up or thumbs down or something.
We've got one for seeing the knot one more time.
All right, we'll go over the knot one more time, and we can do it again later at the end if we need to, because it's super important, because you can't catch a fish if your hook falls off, right?
Right.
Yeah, so let me get this off. It's kind of hard to get off when you tighten it, and that's the point. And if this video is not good enough that you can't see very well, you can search online. You can search the polymer knot, and there's a lot of good diagrams and videos that will come up as well if this isn't good enough. All right, so take it from the top. We got our hook, right? Crush the barbs on it so it's easier to take out of the fish. And we're going to take the end of our line, and we're going to pass it through the eye of the hook. All right? So straight through. In step 2, we're going to take the tag end, and we're going to put it back through the eye of the hook again. Okay? So we've got the loop on one side, and we've got the two ends on the other side. And so just like if you're going to tie your shoes at first, the first step for that we're going to do a little overhand knot. So you take them and just kind of cross them over. And then you're going to take the loop and pass it through. And this is where you don't want to pull it super tight yet because it'll be hard to finish since we have another step left. So now that you got the loop passed through and the little overhand knot, you're going to take the loop and you're going to put the hook through the loop. Okay? And now you take the end that's attached to your fishing pole and the tag end, the two ends, and you're going to pull them up tight. And make sure that your loop doesn't get caught up on your hook or anything. And there we have it. It looks a little funny because it didn't pull quite all the way tight since it's just rope, not fishing line. But you'll have a little knot there at the end, and that should be a good one to hold. That help is that did everyone follow at that time pretty well, or?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next thing we're gonna need, we've got a hook, right? We've crushed the barbs. We've attached it to our fishing pole with the polymer knot. But a fishing hook doesn't have a lot of weight to it, right? So if you were using it, it would just float around the top and it would be hard to cast because there's not a lot of weight to it, so it won't go very far. So to help us cast and to make the hook sink, what we do is we use things called sinkers. And you can see this little guy in my pliers. This is a split shot sinker. It's a really common one to use. You can see it's kind of split open. It's got a little mouth like Pac-Man kind of. That's why we call it split shot. And these, sometimes a lot of them are made out of lead, which can be really harmful to wildlife. So if you buy them, you want to make sure that you get ones that are made out of like tin or steel so that we're not harming all the wildlife with the lead. So anyway, to attach it, I've got an actual hook and some actual line because my demonstration line is too big to put the sinker on. What you're gonna do is take your sinker and you might have to grab the end. Sorry, let me grab it so you can see better. So you see how there's kind of like two little wings on this side of it? You want to grab those with your pliers and squeeze it a little bit and it'll open the mouth of the sinker up. And then you're going to take your fishing line where you attached your hook and a couple inches above the hook is where you're going to put your sinker. All right? And so, sorry, I'm getting all tangled up here. So with you put the line through that, the split right there, you put it right through that split, and then you're gonna take, oh, I dropped it. So then you take your pliers and you're gonna crimp it shut and squeeze it nice and good. So that way, it's grabbed onto your line, a couple inches above your hook. And that way, when you cast, it'll be a little easier to cast it, and it'll make your hook sink. Does that make sense, or everyone's still following pretty well? So we've got, awesome. So now we've got a hook with a crushed barb and a sinker on it. Oh, and a nice polymer polymer night. Oh, one more time. Yeah, I can show how to attach that one more time. So what you want to do, you grab the end of it and you squeeze it so it opens. It kind of opens that mouth up a little bit. And then you take your fishing line, where in a couple inches above your hook, you're going to put it on the line. Sorry, it's kind of hard to show. And then you're going to grab it again and squeeze it shut so that that mouth that was open is clamped onto the fishing line. Okay? All right. So with our hook, with the attached with the polymer knot, and our sinker on it, we need a couple more things. The next thing we're going to want to use is a bobber, because if we have a way for our hook to sink with that sinker on it, it's just going to keep sinking and go all the way down to the bottom. And we might not want our hook all the way down at the bottom, because not all the fish are at the bottom all the time. Excuse me. So these are really common bobbers that people use, and I'll show you how they work. So the top, the little red part, if you push on there, sorry, let me go this way so you can see, there's a little hook that kind of pops out. If you can see that on the bottom. So what you want to do, I would start about a foot or so above your hook. You're going to take the bottom and attach it. So how do you do that? You push it, right? So that little hook pops up, and you just put the line onto the hook and you let go, and it grabs the line. All right. And now we're going to turn it over and attach the top part, because there's a hook there as well. If you push down on here, on the little red part on top, there's another hook that'll show, but you got to hold the bottom hook so it doesn't push it down. So we're gonna pop that one out just like that, and we're gonna put the line through there, and now the bobber is attached onto that fishing line. All right, so a good spot to start might be about a foot or so above your hook, and depending on the type of fish you're trying to catch and the day, you might need to adjust. So some days the fish might be farther below the surface, and you're going to need to move your bobber up a little farther so your hook's down lower, and some days they might be closer to the top, and a foot would be fine. So just start at about a foot or so, and if you're not catching any fish, move it a couple inches up so your hook's a little deeper, and keep adjusting until you start catching fish. So how does everyone feel about attaching a bobber? Should I show that again, or does that make sense?
Cool.
All right. So
thank you.
With we're about ready to go fishing, because this is pretty much our rig, right? That's what we call the complete set of a hook with the sinker and the bobber, all right? But what do you guys think? What else do you guys think we might need? Like, we've got this bare hook. Does that look tasty to anybody? If you were a fish, would you want to eat just a bare hook? You know? Or, ooh, yeah, some bait? Some bait might work well. So does anybody have an idea what bait is? I got it.
Is it worms?
Is it worms? Well, I'll show you right here. This little guy, he works really well as bait, and you can find him just about anywhere you're at. Just turn over some rocks, look in your garden. If you really want to, you can even go buy him from a little fishing store, all right? Gas stations sell them, but worms make great bait. And so what bait is something that looks and or smells like something a fish would want to eat. So it works really well because it attracts them with their smell. And fish have a really great sense of smell. Whoa. Sorry. What? Hey, Kylie, is it still on me or?
1 second, I can switch it.
Okay. I wasn't sure what that
I think
was.
you're good.
Okay. But yeah, so baits are actual food that a fish is going to try to eat. So when you put bait on your hook, the fish is actually going to try to swallow that and eat it. So it's one of the best ways to start fishing. There's another thing that you can use instead of a hook and bait. You can use things like flies and lures. And what those are little guys like this that look like a fish or look like something a fish would eat, but they don't actually taste or smell like something a fish would eat. So if you're using this and it's going through the water and the fish comes up to get it, once he grabs it, he's going to taste it and realize that it's not food. It tastes like plastic. He's going to try to spit it out. So you got to hook him before he spits it out. So they're a little harder to use, but they work pretty well. They work too. So I would recommend using some bait. Like worms work well. You can use bread, just about anything. Corn people use. You guys have any ideas of things you've heard people using as bait?
I've heard of people using cheese.
Ooh, yeah, cheese is smelly. So it might, yeah. So you can look it up or ask people that you know that go fishing around you and see what they use, because everybody likes to use a little bit something different. And you can use just about anything, but it's got to be something that a fish would want to eat, not something you would want to eat. Sometimes they're the same, but I've used hot dogs before. I know that works pretty well. So you can try just about anything you find in the kitchen and see what works. So I think that is pretty much everything. Is there any parts of making a rig, the crushing the barb, tying the knot, attaching a sinker, or the bobber, or questions about baits or lures that anybody has?
If you guys have ever gone fishing before, if you want to share any bait that you use that you caught a fish with, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, most of the fishing poles already have fishing line attached to the pole.
Good question.
Yeah. That would be another good video that we could do sometime, how to re-spool your fishing pole if you run out of fishing line.
Yeah, if anybody would want to see a demonstration on that, we could put that in one of the next videos too.
So we got one question or two for you guys. See if you remember from what I was saying. What are two things that we can do to help protect wildlife when we're fishing. So one of them has something to do with our fishing line. Yes, we don't want to leave fishing line on the ground because that can harm wildlife, and we don't want to use lead bobbers with lead in them because that can be bad for the wildlife as well and really harm them.
Mm-hmm.
So if nobody has any other questions, that is all that I had that I think I wanted to cover. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Ricky. I am going to really quickly, before we let you all go for the weekend, I wanted to just talk about some stuff for the next few weeks really quick. So next week, our video will be at the same time again. It'll be on Saturday at 1 o'clock. And that one is going to be all about casting. So we're gonna learn how to cast our fishing pole out into the water and how to do that safely and correctly. And it's gonna be really good. And we're gonna have another one of our other coworkers doing that one. So definitely show up for that too. And I am going to really quickly link last week's video in the chat. So if any of you guys missed that, or if you want to watch it again, you can do that. And I also, I know that some of you guys had put in your registration that you wanted the link emailed to you. So if anybody told me that, I will email you the link also. Okay, so does anybody have any questions for me about any of the next videos? Okay, well, I put the link to last week's video in the chat, and like I said, I will email that to anyone who said they wanted it emailed to them. And I think that is all I have for you all this week. I'm glad we kept it at 30 minutes. So thank you guys all for coming, and thanks for participating, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
Go find something to practice tying your knots with.
Good idea.